The betrayal on my 50th birthday. Last week, I celebrated my 50th birthday, or at least I thought I was. My 3 sons had organized a surprise party for me, and honestly, I wasn't expecting much. Turning 50 felt like a milestone, something worth acknowledging, but I wasn't one to make a big fuss about birthdays. Still, I held on to a small hope that maybe, just maybe, my sons had begun to realize how important family is, and this could be a step toward healing the long fractured relationship we'd had over the years. For context, I've been divorced from my ex-wife, Bernice, for 8 years. We've been married for 19 years, but when things fell apart, I realized we just weren't on the same page anymore. She wanted excitement. I wanted stability. She wanted fun, while I was the one working long hours to make sure we had a roof over our heads and food on the table. I wasn't perfect, but I tried to be a decent guy. The kids, though, they sided with her during the split. I get it. They were teenagers, and she was the fun parent. I was the one telling them no, whether it was about expensive sneakers or staying out past midnight. As time went on, I tried to maintain a relationship with them, but it always felt like a struggle. Birthday texts, Christmas calls, the occasional lunch. It was like pulling teeth. The conversations always felt like interviews, and I always felt like I was failing. But when Salvador, my oldest son, called me 3 weeks ago, I didn't know what to think. He said they wanted to throw me a party for my 50th. I was shocked, honestly. I thought maybe, just maybe, they were starting to realize that I wouldn't be around forever. Maybe this would be the turning point in our relationship. Maybe it would be the opportunity for us to repair the damage. I was naive enough to get my hopes up. I even bought a new shirt. I was trying so hard to believe that things could be different. Pathetic, right? The party was at a local brewery taproom, hosted by Franklin's friend. About 30 people showed up. A mix of old neighborhood friends, a few cousins, some co-workers, and of course my sons and their friends. Bernice was there too, which should have been my first red flag. But I convinced myself that she was just being civil for the sake of the boys. For once, I thought maybe I was wrong about her. Maybe she had grown up too. I was even having a decent time for first hour. Decent food, a couple of beers, and people seemed genuinely happy to see me. The whole time, I kept thinking how nice it was to be wrong about my sons. Maybe they did care after all. Then, at around 8 p.m., Salvador tapped his glass, and the lights dimmed. A projector screen dropped down, and I thought, okay, here comes a cheesy slideshow with some old photos. Maybe a bit of nostalgia, a few laughs. Maybe this won't be so bad. I couldn't have been more wrong. What followed was a 20-minute compilation titled, The Failures of Eugene Wilson, A Lifetime of Disappointment. Yeah, you heard that right. It wasn't a cute slideshow. It wasn't a celebration of the good times. It was a documentary-style presentation, narrated by Bernice, detailing every failure I've had in my life. It started with my failures as a husband, showing photos from moments when I was at my worst, things like the used car I bought that broke down after 3 months or the camping trip, where it rained the entire time, ruining the whole experience. There were clips from family vacations where I was exhausted and grumpy, having to work long hours to pay the bills. The promotion I didn't get, the unfinished deck I'd started working on but couldn't finish because I was constantly working overtime, trying to keep up with the responsibilities of being a father and husband. I'm not saying I didn't mess up sometimes, but the way it was presented, it felt like a lifetime of failures. But that wasn't even the worst part. Bernice went into explicit detail about our intimate life, our marriage, about how I couldn't satisfy her needs, how I failed her as a husband, and how that was the real reason she left. She even went as far as saying that she had been faking it for years. I could see people laughing in the audience, some uncomfortably, but others were genuinely enjoying the show. They laughed at my expense, at my performance issues, at my failures. The presentation ended with all 3 of my sons standing up to announce that they were legally changing their last names to her maiden name. Not only had they sided with her during the divorce, but now they were rejecting me altogether. Salvador, the oldest, stood there, looking me in the eye, and said, "We'd rather have no father than one who never showed up when it mattered." I just sat there in shock, frozen. The room was split. Half the people were nervously laughing, and the other half was silent, unsure of how to react. Everyone was waiting for me to either break down or blow up. I didn't do either. I stood up, thanked everyone for coming, and walked out. I didn't scream. I didn't say anything. I just walked out. I got in my car, drove home, and sat in my empty house, staring at the wall. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't process what had just happened. How had it all gone so wrong? It's now Thursday morning. The messages haven't stopped coming since Monday. Bernice, all three of my sons, even Salvador's wife, Erica, they've been texting, calling, messaging me on Facebook. They want me to sign the papers for their name change. They need my signature for it to be official. Franklin left a voicemail yesterday. He said I was being childish for ignoring them. Childish. Me. The one who was publicly humiliated in front of everyone I know, having my personal life laid bare and mocked, now being told that I'm childish for not immediately signing the damn papers. Maybe they're right. Maybe I was a terrible father. Maybe I was a terrible husband. Maybe all the sacrifices I made, all the long hours at work, all the times I told them no for their own good, it wasn't enough. Maybe I didn't show up when it mattered. But this isn't how you repair a relationship. This isn't how you fix years of hurt and disappointment. I don't know what to do with myself anymore. I've spent my whole life trying to be the man I thought I should be, working hard, trying to provide, trying to be there for my family. But maybe I was never the man they needed. Now, I'm sitting here at 5 a.m., phone vibrating in my hands, feeling completely lost, and I can't figure out what the hell to do next. I spent years working overtime, pushing myself to the limit, all to keep everything afloat. It wasn't perfect. I missed some important moments, some games, some milestones, but I paid for it all. Every doctor's visit, every pair of shoes, every college application fee. I made sure Salvador had the down payment for his house. When Bernice said she couldn't help, I've been paying Damien's tuition, even though the divorce settlement technically didn't require me to do so after he turned 21. Every time they needed something, I was there. My wallet was always open, ready to help. But apparently none of that matters. I don't know what I'm asking for. Maybe just someone to listen. It's hard to explain the depth of the hurt, but the anger? That's easier to grasp. For 8 years, I've been taking their crap, swallowing my pride, trying to make peace for what? So they could ambush me in front of everyone I know? They don't get it. They think I'm weak, that I'll cave. But I'm angry now. My buddy Vic thinks I should just sign the papers and be done with them. Cut them loose. My cousin thinks I should try to talk to them. Try to understand where all this hatred is coming from. But honestly, I'm done. I've spent 50 years being the reasonable one, the one who compromises, the one who forgives. And what has it gotten me? A long list of failures narrated by the woman who threw away our marriage for some guy she met at the gym. Yeah, I forgot to mention that little detail earlier. It's the cherry on top of the whole mess. So now here I am, phone buzzing again. This time it's Damien, probably calling to tell me how disappointing I am for not immediately helping them erase the last connection they have to me. They think I'm going to cave, but they have no idea. I walked out of that brewery and something changed in me. For the first time in my life, I'm not going to do what they expect of me. I'm turning my phone off, and I'm going for a drive. I need to think, because I'm done. I've spent my whole life doing what everyone expects, but not anymore. Update 1. I honestly didn't expect my last post to get so much attention. Over 2,000 comments. My notifications were going crazy. Thanks to everyone who sent supportive messages and advice. I really appreciate it. Sorry I haven't had the time to respond to all of you. My old Samsung can barely handle the Reddit app without overheating. It's been almost 3 weeks since that birthday party disaster, and a lot of you are asking if I'm okay or if I've talked to my sons. Well, the answer is complicated. I haven't been sitting around, crying over the whole thing. If that's what you're wondering, I've been keeping my head straight. After that party, I went dark for a week, turned my phone off, took a few personal days from work, and just stayed in my house, thinking. I needed time to process before making any decisions. I'm not the impulsive type. Never have been. I guess that's what Bernice meant when she called me boring in front of everyone. But that's beside the point. Here's the thing about my sons that I didn't fully explain in my last post. Despite all their talk about how I'm a failure and a disappointment, they've been financially dependent on me in ways that Bernice has no idea about. Salvador, my oldest, the one who organized a whole slideshow fiasco, I've been quietly making half of his mortgage payments for the last 3 years. Every month, I transfer $1,200 into his account so he and his wife, Erica, can keep up with their fancy house in that overpriced subdivision they bought into. They've got their granite countertops and their 3-car garage, and I've been footing the bill so they can live that lifestyle. Salvador told Bernice I just help with the down payment, but the truth is I've been paying every single month. Then there's Franklin, my second son. He's got a gambling problem, mostly online poker, but lately he's been getting into sports betting too. His fiancée Malia has no idea that I bailed him out 4 times in the last 2 years. The last time, it was $8,000. It's a lot of money for someone like me, someone who's been packing his lunch for work every day for decades just to save a few bucks. But every time Franklin needs me, I'm there, and Damien, my youngest, his tuition isn't paying for itself, and while Bernice promised she'd handle in the divorce, she suddenly had cash flow problems when the time came. So guess who's been silently picking up the tab? I've been paying for his college tuition, his rent, everything. He couldn't balance school and work, so I've been covering for him, even though technically I don't have to. After sitting with all of this for a week, I finally started answering their calls. I played the part they expected, the defeated dad, shaking in my boots, telling them I just want to understand where I went wrong, that I still love them no matter what. Basically, I fed them the pathetic reaction they were hoping for. But here's the thing. I'm done being the pushover. They think I'll keep sacrificing for them, keep bailing them out, but I'm not going to. This time, I'm doing things differently. I'm not the same man I was before, and they have no idea what they're up against. I was hoping they'd fall for it. I suggested a dinner, just with the family, to work through things and find some closure. I thought they'd bite, and they agreed so fast that it almost felt like a joke. Salvador, as expected, picked a high-end Italian restaurant near his house, probably thinking I'd pick up the check as I always do. It was clear he was trying to impress, but there was no way I'd let him get away with that this time. The dinner that followed was something else entirely. I showed up looking like hell on purpose. I hadn't shaved in days, wore an old, wrinkled shirt, and adopted the whole sad sack routine. I wasn't going to play their game anymore. And wow, you should have seen their faces. The smugness on their faces was almost unbearable. Bernice was doing this fake, overly sympathetic look every few minutes, like she was so concerned for me, while the boys took turns explaining why they had done what they did at the party. They kept saying how it was for my own good, how I needed to face reality, and that this was some kind of intervention. Then there was Franklin. He had the nerve to tell me he was proud of me for finally taking responsibility by agreeing to sign the name change papers, like I was some child who needed guidance from him. I just nodded through it all, barely making eye contact with anyone. Every now and then, I'd wipe my eyes as though I was on the verge of tears, but inside, I was just making mental notes of every single thing they said, every cruel comment, every condescending glance, and every time Bernice laughed just a little too loudly at their jokes that were all at my expense. The whole dinner felt like a rehearsed performance. Not one of them asked how I was really feeling, or showed any real remorse. It was all about them getting what they wanted, my signature on those papers. They weren't there to offer support or closure. They were just there to twist the knife a little deeper. So, I gave them exactly what they wanted. I signed the papers right there at the table, looking up at them with fake sincerity, telling them I understood why they didn't want my name anymore, and that I was sorry for being such a disappointment. It felt like a weight was lifted off me in that moment, but I knew that once I left that dinner, I had a whole other plan in motion. As soon as I got home that night, I logged into my banking app and started making changes. First, I canceled all automatic transfers to Salvador's account. No more handouts for him. Then, I sent an email to my bank, stopping the payment on the check I'd written for Damien's tuition that semester. Finally, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I blocked Franklin's number. I knew that when his next gambling crisis hit, he'd have to deal with it on his own. But that wasn't enough. I went to my email and dug up all the messages from Franklin asking me for money, all the screenshots of his betting accounts, the Venmo transfers with labels like poker bailout, and the constant requests for help with his gambling debts. I compiled everything into a folder, created a new email address, and sent it all to Malia with the subject line, "What your fiancé isn't telling you." That was 3 days ago, and since then my quiet, predictable life has turned into a circus. Salvador called me 13 times yesterday after his mortgage payment bounced. He left a voicemail screaming at me about how his bank sent him a notice about his overdue payment and how his credit score was about to tank. Apparently, Erica is absolutely losing it because they're hosting her family reunion next month, and now they might lose the house. Not my problem anymore. Damien sent me an email from his university about his unpaid tuition and outstanding balance. Since then, he's been blowing up my phone with a mix of guilt trips and threats. He's told me I've ruined his life and that I'm a failure as a parent. Sorry, kid. Should have thought about that before you made that video, calling me a failure in front of all your friends. But the real fireworks have come from Franklin and Malia. Malia showed up at my house yesterday, tears streaming down her face, asking me if the emails I sent her were real. I didn't need to lie. I just nodded. Apparently, she's called off the engagement and moved back in with her parents. The drama between her and Franklin has been something else. And Franklin? He left me an unhinged voicemail at 2 a.m., calling me every name in the book, accusing me of ruining his life, betraying his trust, and being the worst person he's ever known. The irony is completely lost on him. He's blaming me for everything when he's the one who's been a walking disaster for years. Meanwhile, Bernice has been texting me nonstop, demanding that I fix everything because the boys are in crisis. She actually wrote that I need to stop being petty and think of the family. The audacity of this woman. This is the same woman who narrated a highlight reel of my personal failings in front of 30 people at that party. Now she's trying to guilt trip me into fixing all their problems. The thing is, Reddit, I don't feel bad. Not even a little bit. For 8 years, I've been their personal ATM while they treated me like garbage to my face. They thought I would just sit there and take it, that I'd be the punching bag they could rely on for money and emotional support. They were wrong. I'm done. I'm not taking it anymore, and this time, I'm not playing the role they've assigned to me. Update. Phase 1 was just the beginning. Hey, Reddit. It's been about a month since my last update, and let me tell you, things have only gotten more intense. First off, I just want to say the support I've received from so many of you has been absolutely overwhelming. My notifications were blowing up like crazy, but in a good way. I was getting messages from folks who offered their advice on how to navigate Reddit. I'm old. Okay, so I really appreciated that. I've been reading all of your messages during lunch breaks, between my cracked phone screen and spotty Wi-Fi, but I've been doing my best to catch up. Now, I know some of you were critical of what I did in my last post, especially the part where I cut off financial support for Salvador. Some of you called it a boomer revenge fantasy, which cracked me up because, first of all, I'm Gen X, not a boomer, but whatever. Others were cheering me on, saying it was long overdue. A few of you even advised I take the high road. But let me tell you, sometimes taking a high road is just giving people a better view to spit on you. So, here's where things stand after Phase 1. Things have not gone well for people I cut ties with. The fallout from Phase 1. Let's start with Salvador. His financial situation has only gotten worse since I stopped helping him out. Turns out, he was already behind on his mortgage payments before I even cut off support, and he's been living well beyond his means for years. He's the type to blame everyone else for his problems, but refuses to take responsibility for his own actions. Last Wednesday, he actually showed up at my door unannounced. He had some sob story about how Erica, his partner, was so stressed about their finances that she was apparently on medication for it, as if that's somehow my fault. Then there's Franklin. If you remember, he's the one who got caught up in that gambling mess with the $25,000 loss on fantasy football. Well, things have only gotten worse for him. Malia, his partner, found out about the gambling and ended things with him. She changed her relationship status on Facebook to single and posted some cryptic message about trusting your instincts with a bunch of red flag emojis. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Now, Franklin is couch surfing at friends' places and drunk texting me at 3 a.m. He's been sending me messages calling me a pathetic old man and saying I'll die alone. This from the guy who's lost $25K on fantasy sports. Real classy, right? Then there's Damon. Remember him? The one who couldn't pay his college fees because of his debts? Well, now he's been put on academic probation. He couldn't even register for classes this semester because of an unpaid balance. And to top it all off, he had the nerve to email my boss, trying to get me in trouble. He sent a long, rambling message claiming that I was mentally unstable and neglecting my family. Thankfully, my boss has known me for 15 years, so he just forwarded the email to me with "I" as the only comment. Classic. And finally, there's Bernice. She's been working overtime to smear my name to the extended family and mutual friends. She's been telling everyone I'm having a late-life crisis and that they're all concerned about my mental health. Typical Bernice move. When she can't control you, she tries to control how others see you. She even started bombarding me with calls, texts, and social media messages trying to guilt-trip me. I had to make it clear that I wasn't going to entertain any more of her manipulation. Time for phase 2, the family meeting. All this drama was getting old, so I decided it was time for phase 2. I needed to address this head-on, and the way to do that was with a family meeting. I sent out a group text last Sunday to everyone involved. The message was simple. I want to make things right and find a solution that worked for all of us. I told them to come over to my house this past Saturday at noon. Oh, and I made sure to mention I'd be ordering a ton of food, so they should come hungry. The speed at which they all responded told me everything I needed to know. They all agreed to come without hesitation. I knew this was going to be interesting. So, yesterday, Saturday, I spent the morning getting ready. Not because I cared what they thought of my house, but because the cleaning helped clear my head. I even put fresh sheets on the guest bed, even though no one was staying over. Old habits die hard, I guess. I then ordered a ridiculous amount of food from that Chinese restaurant near the highway. You know, the one with all the good stuff. Egg rolls, dumplings, fried rice, the works. I wasn't going to let them walk in here thinking they were going to get anything less than a spread. What's next? That's all I've got for now. The family meeting is coming up, and I'll keep you all posted on how that goes. Things are definitely heating up, but I'm standing my ground. It's been a long time coming, but I'm finally starting to feel like I'm in control of my life again. No more letting people walk all over me. No more enabling bad behavior. I'm 50 years old, and it's about time I started standing up for myself. Thanks again for all the support, Reddit. I'll keep you updated on what happens next. The evening was supposed to be a quiet gathering. I had ordered a variety of food: Salvador's beef and broccoli, Franklin's General Issy, Damien's crab rangoon, and even Bernice's favorite hot and sour soup. It came to nearly $100 after delivery fees and tip, but I knew it was worth every penny. I had planned for something special. The food arrived almost all at once, within 10 minutes of each other, and the timing felt almost deliberate. Bernice was the first to show up, 20 minutes early as usual. It was clear she had arrived early, probably hoping to have some alone time with me. The boys, as expected, arrived right at noon. The air in my living room was thick with an unspoken tension that could have been sliced with a knife. They all looked, well, terrible, to put it bluntly. Salvador had dark, deep circles under his eyes, probably from lack of sleep or stress. Franklin, usually so meticulous, hadn't shaved in days, his scruffy face a clear indication of how long he'd been neglecting his appearance. Damien seemed even worse, pale and thinner than I remembered, almost like he hadn't been taking care of himself. And then there was Bernice. She was as put together as ever, her perfect hair, impeccable makeup, and well-pressed clothes, but her eyes betrayed the strain she was under. I could see the pressure, the exhaustion. If only for a moment. I did my best to play the gracious host. I handed out plates, served drinks, and made small talk about the weather Anything to fill the uncomfortable silence that seemed to settle around us. But it was obvious what was on their minds. They were all just waiting for me to bring up the money. Franklin kept glancing at his phone every 30 seconds, like he was afraid he might miss something important. Salvador, always the fidgeter, was tapping his foot in a nervous rhythm. Damien, poor Damien, couldn't seem to make eye contact with anyone, least of all me. Finally, after everyone had their food, I decided it was time. I stood up, gave a slight smile, and said, "I have a special presentation I'd like to share with all of you." The expressions that flashed across their faces were priceless, a mix of confusion and growing concern. They all exchanged looks, each one unsure what I was about to do. I pulled out my laptop, fiddled with the HDMI cable for a moment, as usual. It never connected the first try. And then hit play. The screen flickered to life, and I could see the exact moment their tension ratcheted up even higher. What followed was a 16-minute and 22-second video. A birthday presentation they had all contributed to for my party, which, unbeknownst to them, I had secretly requested a copy of. Salvador's friend, who ran the brewery, had sent to me under the guise of wanting it for nostalgic memories. But the audio was crystal clear. Bernice's narration, the one she so gleefully recorded about my failures, echoed through the room, loud and clear. The boys' scripted speeches, where they try to hide behind jokes about changing their names, came next. And of course, the laughter from the audience, the same laughter that had haunted me since that moment, filled the space once again. I didn't say a word. I let the video run its full course. I watched them squirm, each of them shifting uncomfortably in their seats as the images of their mockery and my humiliation played before their eyes. The entire video felt like a cruel joke they thought they'd played on me. Now the joke was on them. When the video finally ended, I flicked the lights back on. The room, once illuminated by the glow of the TV, was now plunged into a cold, awkward silence. I reached down to the coffee table and pulled out 4 manila folders, each one carefully prepared, with their names written neatly on the tabs. Old school, yes, but there was something about the weight of real paper that felt more potent than an email or a digital file. It wasn't just about the information inside. It was about the presentation. I handed each of them their folder without a word. Salvador hesitated for only a second before tearing open his envelope. Inside, he found a complete record of every mortgage payment I had made for him over the past 3 years, a total of $43,200. But there was more. I had included a formal letter, stating that I would not be seeking repayment for the money I had lent him. However, there was a clear condition. I would also never provide financial assistance to him again. Not a penny. I could see the shock on his face as he read through the document. But I didn't let up. I watched as the others opened their folders too, each of them realizing they had the same kind of documents waiting for them, each one a reminder what they owed me, but with no promise of forgiveness. No more chances. The room was silent again, this time heavier than before. It was as if the weight of everything that had been unsaid, all the bad blood and resentment, had finally been laid out in front of them. There would be no more pretending, no more games. And as they sat there, stunned and speechless, I finally spoke. This is what happens when you forget who helped you. This is what happens when you make a fool of someone who trusted you. The tension, now fully palpable, lingered in the air. They didn't know how to respond, didn't know whether to apologize, beg for forgiveness, or simply leave. They had no idea what to do with the mess they had made. And in that moment, I knew I had won. Franklin's folder held all the evidence of his gambling habits. Printouts of every transaction, screenshots of his DraftKings account, and records of his online poker losses. There were also text messages asking for bailouts, and buried within, confirmation that I had enrolled him in a free online gambling addiction program. He just had to show up. Damon's folder contained receipts for his tuition payments over the last 2 years, along with a letter detailing how I'd paid off his remaining balance for the semester. That was the last time I'd contribute to his education. I may have been angry, but I wasn't about to ruin his future entirely. Then there was Bernice's folder. The photos of her with her CrossFit instructor. Photos I'd never use in court during our divorce to spare the kids from anything uglier than necessary. Now they were front and center. These were the photos that proved she'd broken our vows first, not me, as they sat there flipping through their personalized evidence packets. I calmly explained that I'd also sold the house I inherited from my parents, the house they all assumed they'd get someday. Signed the papers last week. It's sold for a good price in this market. Then I pulled out the last document, the final one, my official name change paperwork. If they didn't want my last name anymore, neither did I. Changed it to my mother's maiden name, effective immediately. The silence in that room was deafening. Salvador tried to explain the video was just a joke that went too far. Franklin kept insisting they were only trying to motivate me to do better. Damon, the youngest, started crying, and for a moment, I almost let it break me. Nearly. Bernice took another angle, talking about how we could work through this as a family, how everyone makes mistakes, and she actually reached across the table to hold my hand. I pulled away. I told them they were welcome to finish their meal, but as far as I was concerned, our business was concluded. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and told them to lock the door when they left. As I was walking out, Salvador asked where I was going. I told him I had a lunch date, which was true. I've been seeing this woman named Audrey for a couple of weeks now. I met her in a Facebook group for hiking enthusiasts over 40. She's divorced, has grown kids who actually respect her, and we're taking things slow. It's been 24 hours since that meeting, and my phone has been unusually quiet. Just one text from Damon asking if we could talk privately sometime. I'll probably say yes eventually. He's the youngest, and most likely he was just following his brother's lead. Reddit. I'm not claiming I handled everything perfectly. I'm not saying cutting ties with my own sons doesn't hurt like hell. But for the first time in 8 years, I don't feel like just an emotional punching bag or someone's ATM. I've got a trip to Yellowstone planned next month. Always wanted to go, but never did because Bernice thought camping was beneath us. For my 51st birthday next year, I'm celebrating alone, by choice. And something tells me it will be the best damn birthday I've had in decades.